All right, welcome to Now This Is Podcasting. I'm Connor, and I'm here as always with Calvin.
Hello.
And we have Katya on again.
Hey.
And we are continuing our conversation on we're all going to the World's Fair. We ended up making this a two-parter because I just felt like we had so much to say about it. So go ahead and sit back, relax, and enjoy as we kind of elaborate on more of our feelings on this film.
Yeah.
Was there a point in this movie where you thought something paranormal was happening, that the World's Fair was like a real curse or like a real event that was affecting people? Or is this all just psychological? Is it all some kind of like psychosis that these people who participate put themselves into, and then they just get wrapped up in their own idea of what's happening? They've created their own lore around this. They've built up themselves in their own story in a way that it can only end in like tragedy. Or do you think there is some kind of dark magic taking place?
Well, I think JLB, see, that's why I'm not quite set on any JLB theory, because I think he wanted to believe there was something happening. Like, he did a freeze frame on her face when she was sleeping, and he's like, this means something. It just
That's
sounds
the only
like,
scary part of the movie. It's like actually genuinely good.
That's
like
the scariest. Yeah, it's a super, that and yeah, the warm milk was scary. Like,
I forgot about
freaking,
that part.
See, that's like
what did you say? Because you said something during the movie.
Yeah, because he was microwaving his milk. I was like, that's the creepiest thing I've seen so far.
Yeah.
It's just funny, because just like you just don't like microwaves. That's all it is.
No, but I also don't like milk or hot milk. And it's like, that makes me think he not necessarily lost a child, but more like he wants to be a child. Like, that is such a child-soothing, like, American thing.
Or maybe it's a thing that he did for his child, and that he's trying to keep the ritual.
Yeah, so he like
a part of it, a part of his life.
I think either way, no matter how you
it's
look at
just
it,
weird.
there is something. The character of JLB is deeply disturbed in some way.
Yeah.
But my point about him is I always think he was like genuine in how he cared about someone. There was never anything nefarious I thought he was doing.
Is he
He's
chaotic?
certainly
It's a whole nother conversation.
he's certainly
Right.
creepy.
Yeah,
Like-
is he chaotic good, chaotic evil,
Yeah. Like,
or
how-
lawful good that's just a guy that doesn't understand basic social structures?
It's not okay
yeah.
to care about people that much that you don't know, and he doesn't know her anyway. So,
I
but,
think
like,
that's part of the question of the movie.
like,
Because I think
yeah.
that speaks more to, because I really, like I said, I think this is about people in fringe groups who are so isolated. The only way they get that, the only way they can fill that gap for human interaction is to do it in this really unorthodox way online. So I do think like he's just this really tormented soul who can't interact with people in a real way. So the only way he can do it is through a creepy video on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe.
I kind of think of like, okay, the same thing, like the woman that was shushing Casey to sleep when she was out in the shed or barn or whatever.
The man cave.
Yeah, the man cave.
Yeah.
With the pool table. If you were to do that to a loved one, that's not ambiguous what your intentions are at all. It's a selfless, loving act. But over the internet, it just feels completely different.
You know what that is? That's like the ASMR videos.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was a lot of ASMR in there. ASMR.
Do you know what it stands for?
Martian?
I should have looked it up before.
A sympathetic,
Auditory.
auditory.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Auditory.
Auditory. People like
Yeah.
it. Some people like. I hated that part of the movie. I did not like watching that video of her stroking the camera, and I didn't like the blurry shots.
I think that was so important though, because that was someone who isn't getting loved by anyone.
Yeah.
This video of someone who might just be doing it for views, or maybe they actually do care about someone. I think it's the same idea as JLB. Like, why is this person recording them a video of them engaging in a loving act on the internet?
Oh, it's certainly for view. Like that's like a huge. That's like a huge
the
part of
ASMR,
YouTube.
yeah.
Is the
Right.
whole, yeah.
Sure.
It's so like,
But
like
in
there-
this
there are
case, if
channels
it's
that
just
are
like,
dedicated to it, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But if it's just like someone who's
her.
got like a few 400 views, does that change the purpose of why you make that video?
Well, we get less than a few 400 views, and we still do this.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, exactly. But I think part of
it's
why
more,
we
I think it's more telling about Casey.
Yeah.
The fact that like, she's so lonely that the only way she gets like a real nice goodnight is to watch someone else, like someone's video.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
loving her, yeah.
I think it says more about Casey, but I think there is just that, it's just that other layer of like another person engaging in the internet, and how we're all doing it through the medium of time.
For sure,
These are all
yeah.
memories. They're not actually real people. So
Yeah.
it's reactions to the memory of another person, which is then made into a memory of themselves for someone else to interact with, which is so bizarre that you can almost think of like all human interaction as having a time lag. It's basically still human interaction, but because of the time lag, it's a completely different thing. And I don't think that biologically we're wired to understand any of it.
No, that's such a good way to put it,
Yeah.
that there's a lag on human interaction when you do it online. I think that's a really good way to put it. It's certainly, we live in a very strange time.
But we're getting used to it, right? Like we're getting used
Mm-hmm.
to like, I'd rather text someone than call them because if they ask me a question, I want a chance to think about it. Like I don't ever want to answer in real time, ever.
Yeah.
And so I think we are getting programmed to be like, oh, we do have to wait or whatever.
Well, and there's certainly still like, you still have like dopamine responses to
Oh yeah.
interactions you have online. So it's not like it feels like it's an artificial way to get the same sort of result.
Yeah.
Like it's not quite human interaction, but your brain sort of thinks it is. So it feels like enough.
It's keeping you on there.
Yeah.
Well, that like, I don't think this is all about like the internet like sucking your energy and being like a succubus and like but it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
But to circle back to Paranormal Activity, which is where we started
Yes.
at the beginning of this crazy thread, like, so me not watching a lot of YouTube videos or really being in that like YouTube scrolling vibe, I thought a lot of the videos they were showing were like actually happening. I thought this was this whole thing that she was going through. Like, I think it took me until after talking to Calvin and like seeing that it was this whole like timeline phenomenon that when I was actually watching the movie, I was like, oh, he's pulling tickets out of his arm. Like when that guy has the
Right.
mold, or like, oh, he gets sucked into the computer. I was like, I had kind of time to read the title, but I didn't understand how it fit in.
I actually
I
think-
had trouble understanding the layout.
I think that video of the kid who gets sucked into the computer,
Yeah.
I think it's a joke to mock scary movies. I think it was
Yeah.
it was meant to be like, this is not what this movie
It's like
is.
The Ring thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
its production quality is like kind of a little bit higher than what the rest of the movie is.
Yeah.
It feels like, and it's got some VFX in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really poorly acted. He's like, get out of there, like turn off the computer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it felt very much like what Top Gun is going to be.
oh yeah, I'm excited to do that one. I know you're not, but I am. But that clip from that kind of YouTube session we go through, I thought it was mocking.
Oh, totally.
Like this is how
Yeah.
you could take this same premise and make a really crappy movie, and it would look like this.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a joke. I think I laughed. It was actually one of the like genuinely funny part in what is a pretty dreary movie.
Yeah, because I thought it was just going to be like the same thing. Nothing happens, and slowly things start happening later in the clip, or like it jumps ahead forward in that season or something. But the fact that it actually just comes out a la Ring, and I think that was such a great way of saying like, yeah, that's stupid, and we're not doing that. In case you haven't figured it out, we're not doing that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now we've gotten kind of our own ideas out on this movie.
Yeah.
I researched some articles because this felt like a movie that not a lot of people were going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to go and check and see if there had been anything about it. So I will read you the title of the article, and you tell me if that's what the movie is about or not.
I love it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited for this.
So the first article I have is "We're all going to the World's Fair. Take on horror and the internet echo chamber." And this was by,
Yeah. I mean, I recognize that one's by David Sims. I didn't read that one, but
I did.
yeah, because I wanted to form all of my own opinions. But I'm glad that you did, because I mean, I think he's such a smart reviewer, and I think I totally like. We didn't really talk much about echo chambers, but that's absolutely what's happening with Slender Man, the whale suicides, and with this movie as an expression of those. It's totally just like when you get sucked into the YouTube rabbit hole, you only get told by the algorithm like this is what reality is, or this is how people work. So I mean, I agree with them. I haven't disagreed with David Sims yet.
There's a quote from it. He says, Sjobernaar wants the audience to wonder whether supernatural forces are at work or the mere echo chamber of creepiness.
Yeah.
Which I think essentially is what the movie's doing, because it feels like for a lot of it, until kind of you get that for sure moment at the end where she's like, I'm just playing.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think that's a for sure moment, but I do think that
Yeah.
there's enough that you can look in like, this is all just acting. She's just acting in all of these.
Yeah, I don't know. See, like I got so much like less like the internet. Like by the end, after thinking about it, I was like, this is about the internet, but this is so much more about like not knowing who you are, like trying to figure it out. But the scary thing about echo chambers or whatever you can find on the internet is that you can be anything and anyone can tell you what to be.
Right.
And like, when do you remember why you started or like where you're going?
I guess my trouble with the term echo chamber is I feel like that's applied so much to politics lately, where
Well,
you just want to keep hearing that you're right all the time. Whereas I feel like the kind of the community surrounding like the telling of stories online, these horror stories, it feels like it's more expansive and inclusive. Like there are sites forums where someone like creates a creature or something, and then a bunch of people like add to that forum, like, oh, maybe it does this, maybe this is its power, maybe this is what makes it scary. So that to me sounds like this movie feels like less of a commentary on the echo chamber of creepiness to me. That's sort of my issue. Maybe it's just the terminology is where I have the trouble with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do understand it's the idea of like kind of being stuck in this repetitive cycle. Like she certainly is into the creepy aspect of the internet, and so she technically, is in an echo chamber. But I just feel like the term has changed enough to where I didn't love that like title in
The
it.
title.
Well, I think it is right, because I think the echo chambers just are applied to politics and how it really just erodes societies in general. But I think echo chambers exist in everything, because you can really just think of echo chambers as your spheres of influence, even in your real life. So I think, because there's a psychological phenomenon too that I the term itself is I'm blanking on, but if you tell a lie enough times, it becomes a truth. And that's exactly what's happening with this, the World's Fair, that she's just watching so many videos like, oh, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
And I'm a part of this as well. And I think that's where this, the echo chamber exists, is when you keep reinforcing the same idea, whether it's true or not, is why it is an echo chamber, because we are stating this is the state of things, and irregardless of truth.
Yeah, like the Slender Man stuff, or like people, like there's a YouTube channel where this girl just like lives her life and is lonely, and just like, then you think you should get murdered, and like maybe her boyfriend did it, but then it turns out like she staged the whole thing.
Right.
And so like some people think that's so cool, and like that's lore, that's myth. Well, maybe it started out as like that, but because you were just channeling all these same people who were so invested in it and involved in it, like they believed it and they acted on it. And I think that's what's cool.
Yeah. So I agree. I think, yes, this is about echo chambers in one sense, but I still think of this as a tool. The internet is a tool, and in conjunction with lonely and hurt people.
Yeah.
So not so much an echo chamber per se. I think that's one iteration or one thing that they explore with it. But I think that what you come to this movie with, the idea of, first and foremost, it's really about how hurt people use the internet.
All right, my next one is for Katya. So I'll read the title and you tell me, is this a good way to describe the movie? We're all going to the World's Fair review. Exhilarating gaming horror mashup.
What?
I was hoping for that reaction. I read that title and I said about the same thing.
I was just listening to it. I thought you were going to say, we're all going to the world's fart. I was like, he's got to say
That would be
something
such
ridiculous.
a great negative review for that. Like, if we wanted to write an article that was like how bad this movie is, that would be a great title for it.
Yeah, but I didn't. So I don't understand where any gaming aspect came into this at all.
It's the idea of role playing.
Yeah, but there was no inspiration or guide. Like, there's just other YouTube.
Well, think of it
videos.
like D&D. Like, that's a game. So it's guided storytelling.
I'm with you. I think it's a poor choice of title, because saying you're in a role playing game is different than saying gaming.
Yeah.
Gaming is synonymous with like,
Yeah.
I'm going to hop on Xbox Live or I'm going to get on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
So to say you're gaming in your title, to me,
It's a little complicated.
yeah,
I'm not. So go. Whoa! Don't say. I'm not like saying advocating like what a good title. I'm just clarifying what they probably meant.
Yeah, but
for
I still
character
this is
limit.
like so. This is so advanced for me.
Do you
like
have
the
an issue with them using exhilarating in the title?
Oh wait, read the title again. I heard exhilarating, but
Exhilarating gaming horror mashup.
yeah,
We walked out of this and you're like, that was boring.
yeah. I was bored a lot of the time, but I also felt very uncomfortable a lot of the rest of the time, like thinking about the internet and like my people I know and younger people. I'm just like, oh God, that's gotta be so hard.
Right.
Like, so confusing. Like, what if I had found that? Like, I'm listening to a podcast and she was talking about like writing Harry Potter fan fiction on like a Neopets chat board, like as a kid with like a screen name with a kid from the village. Like, and I'm like, that is exactly like, if I had the internet, that's exactly what I would have wanted to do, but I couldn't. So I just sat around staring into space and like doing it in my head.
Right.
And then I would be like, oh, that's in my head. Okay, now time to do stuff. But it's so interesting that like kids can do that now, like in real life. They're like, oh, this isn't just like pretend. This isn't just like dress up. We're role playing. And like, I don't have any control over where the role play goes because I'm performing for this huge audience of millions of people that include me, a 13, 14, 15-year-old, and like 30, 40, 50-year-old, like doing whatever, like increasingly horrific things.
Right.
Yeah. And
That's what's creepy to me. Like, how can this be a role-playing game?
Yeah. And I think the biggest problem with just the internet in general is no matter where you go, even if a majority of people don't like what you're doing, you're going to get reinforced in a positive sense, whatever you're doing from somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's really scary is even if you don't know yourself, people are going to reinforce whatever you're acting out and it'll slowly become you.
Which is almost a good thing and bad thing about the internet. Like
yeah.
you could find like your total niche group that agrees with you and like can support you on something. But if your niche group is terrible, it's scary because there are still other people out there who will identify with that.
That's
so
where echo chambers get scary. Yeah. And that's where it's like, well, you don't know who your support system's going to be. Like, I think it's always so cool when people find a support system through the internet. Like anybody, well, note on the director that they went through a transition during writing this screenplay. And that was when they realized they wanted to transition from a man to a woman or a female body. Like, when you find a community that can support that, like, that's amazing. But also sometimes people reach out to these communities for support when they have people around them that want to give them support.
Yeah.
That's always interesting too. Like, maybe you're just isolated and you don't have anybody. Amazing. Maybe you're around a ton of people that want to love you, but you don't want that.
There's certainly a level of anonymity you get online that makes some aspects of life more comfortable and more easy to go through than confronting them with actual people.
Yeah.
So I think that I think that makes sense to be both and right in both ways. Like, you can find a community online because it might be easier, but the idea that maybe if I just opened up to the people around me, I could get that same level of support, maybe even better.
Yeah. And if I haven't made myself clear, because I guess when I just keep saying Tool, I guess, everyone knows what that means.
Oh, Tool, the band?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Like Tool, right?
They're not quite hard enough for me. But I think that that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, it's great that you can find a community because it's a tool. It's bad that you can find a community that reinforces things that are going to hurt you, like also as a tool, because the tool doesn't have any moral standpoint. It's because it's not concerned with the ends. It's just a means. And that's what the internet is. And I think there's a melancholy, bittersweet note throughout this whole movie about how there are good things to this. Like that woman that is just shushing the camera, the ASMR, and Casey's trying to sleep with it. That's almost like a little loving thing that Casey has found in a world that doesn't care about her, where she seems to be contemplating suicide because this was right after she pulled the gun out and then put it back.
Right.
Yeah.
That here's a small corner of this tool that can give her some solace.
What is it? In Arrival, they talk about they're trying to describe tool to the aliens, like the word tool, or they're like, you can't say hammer because, well, some people will see hammer and they'll think tool. Someone else will see hammer and think weapon. So it's like that same kind of thing. Like, how do we communicate that? How do we understand that? And what do we use it for?
And who's responsible for that?
Right.
Like, is it up to you as a user? Like, again, I think it's so easy to think like the internet is nefarious or has a purpose or like has a hidden agenda, but it really doesn't.
The internet is not innately anything.
Yeah.
It's all based on who's using it. Yeah.
It's like, how do you want to use it?
Yeah, there was I can't remember. Man, I'm just full of things that I don't remember the term for.
You got to cite your references.
Yeah, we'll get to the point. But there's it's not Occam's razor, but it's something similar. So type something similar, Occam's razor, some abortion.
David's razor.
I don't think it is David's razor.
I'm making
but-
that up.
Caleb's razor?
No, it's yeah. But anyways, it's something similar. So Occam's razor is basically when given the choice between two ideas, choose the one that was a dog, not a person. When given the choice of two ideas, like choose the one that is less complicated. That's where you what ultimately makes more sense. Like if it is more complicated to arrive at this event through this solution, then more likely it's the simpler of the two explanations. The other one.
Do you want me to go through a list? I found one.
Okay, you found it. Okay.
So you have Occam's razor.
Yeah.
Where it's like keep it simple, stupid.
That's great. That makes. I mean, I said it in a lot more words than that.
There's Grice's razor, which is you know what I meant. Hume's razor, which is evidence must be equal to claims.
I love Hume's razor. I use that a lot.
Hitchin's razor, which is no evidence, no argument. Alder's razor, no experiment, no argument. And Hanlon's razor, which is people aren't evil.
Yeah, Hanlon's razor is actually what it is. It's you can't don't attribute to volition someone's malintent which you can equally attribute to stupidity.
That's such a good way. That's such a good.
And I think that's what the internet is. It's like everyone wants this big, giant, white conspiracy, but it's how we make neural networks and exchange information in a space that we just don't understand.
Yeah, we don't get it.
I think that's why conspiracy theory threads spread so easily, is because if we were just talking amongst us, it just doesn't go very far. But when it's detached from any single source, it feels like it's actually news or like, some secret.
Yeah.
I knew when we got out of this movie, and after I had like maybe a day to digest it, I was like, this is going to be such a good conversation that is going to end up not being about the movie at all.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
It can't be.
because it feels like this opened up like so many doors for interesting things to talk about, which is why I was really excited to talk about it. But I have one more article title I want to read.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we were still doing that.
We're All Going to the World's Fair is a coming-of-age creepypasta. That was by Wired.
Oh, she died, though, so I don't know if you come of age.
We don't know. No. Okay. I agree with that one the most.
Okay, can you elaborate? Because I disagree with that one the most. To me,
interesting. You agreed with the exhilarating gaming mashup.
Oh, no. Okay, sorry. I didn't agree with that one either.
You agreed it was
it's a terrible
Were you
title.
exhilarated?
Well, to me, a coming-of-age story is some kind of a transition that takes place in a character where they move from childhood to adulthood, or some aspect of them moves from childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
If anything, I think
she
Casey
did.
becomes more of a child because she stays engaged in an imaginary story. She is not growing up. She's staying a part of this thing that she's comfortable with. She's not moving on. So I think that she's staying a child. I think it's just cool to say coming of age in any movie that has a young kid in it.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah. If you compare it to like Stand By Me or like
Or Licorice
My
Pizza.
Girl.
Oh, Licorice Pizza, the greatest coming of age story we've ever talked
nobody
about.
came or aged in that movie, including us. Well, so the only reason I resonate with that one the most is because I do think this is all about. I think Casey's real, Calvin. She's not made up. I think it's all about Casey.
But she killed herself at the end.
Yeah, well, maybe she killed, or maybe she
Because
just
he had to
disappeared.
finish the story.
Yeah, maybe she just disappeared though. Maybe he was just worried she killed herself. There's like, maybe she got help. Maybe she pulled out. Like, we don't know.
And again, I think he tells the story for closure for
Yeah,
himself.
I think it's
I think
all
Casey's
about
still
him.
alive.
I think this is all about the stories we tell ourselves to make ourselves okay with things, and like also all about like how do we play with who we are. Like, she got to do all these cool things, like with the like once we didn't really see her before the challenge, but once she got in the challenge, she had this whole like frame to start to like express herself. Like, before, we can assume she was just watching these videos. She wasn't interacting. And then once she took the challenge, she started interacting. She started showing herself. She started like playing around with like, oh, I'm this. I want to like, I'm going to sing. I'm going to dance. I'm going to scream. I'm going to let out all this stuff that's going on. I don't get it. You're going to watch it or not. Like, her videos didn't get that much views. It's not like she was necessarily doing it for her viewers.
as much
I
as
think-
it was just being a participant in life.
Yeah, I think
this
it was
is
her
such
participating. I think
Yeah.
it was her figuring out like what she could be outside of what she had.
Is that coming of age though? Like,
I think so,
did she
because
move
she
from
says
one
it.
stage to another? I guess.
If you say like it's all make believe, it's all pretend at the end, I think that if you say it in that way, in that type of conversation, it's tacit acknowledgement that to the contrary, or not tacit knowledge to the contrary, but just it shows that she knows that it isn't real, that she is that she is play acting all of this, and so she is aware. I think that's part of it. It's like, I think what's really interesting to think about this is you can think of like some philosophers have likened it to the aesthetic life as the life unlived or the life unobserved. And that's what she's kind of doing here. It's weird to think about because the aesthetic life is usually something just you're doing what you've been given. And you're not trying to question or go against the flow. It's really weird in the sense of engaging in an online space and engaging in an echo chamber. If she is living an aesthetic life, is she, because she's breaking out of the norm of her mundane life and engaging with something, is she engaging aesthetically, or is she actually trying to live a new life?
Yeah, and she could have killed herself, or she could have been like, yeah, I'm done with this game now, and got off it and gone and done other things.
I think the term coming of age is not ambiguous. I think it means something to storytelling, and it's very direct and very descriptive of what it means. So to say coming of age doesn't like quite land to me. Again, part of the reason I wanted to bring up these articles is because I just thought they all had bad names. They just like none of them really like nailed what the movie was about. And like reading the articles, they all hit on parts that like explain the movie well, touched on like content within it and perspectives on it. But I just thought they all had pretty bad titles, which I feel like
I guess that's true.
I feel like if you're gonna grab someone, they did a good job grabbing me because I was like, that's not what this movie
this
is.
is stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you title it?
Coming to age.
Oh man,
Coming to an end.
Just
of
coming
age.
to.
man, I don't know how I would title it, but I just know it's not a coming of age story to me. In like, I guess the purest description of that phrase, It's not an echo chamber. I think in terms of how that term has been skewed now, and it's certainly not an energizing game-playing movie, gaming movie.
Yeah.
Again, I just think the words chosen were to be
Yeah.
flashy title, and they weren't meant to like really convey what the movie is about, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because almost all the media surrounding this movie doesn't
Really-
really talk about what it's about, and not even the trailer shows what the movie's really about. So
It's so good. I think it's like coming to. I think it's a lot about coming to self, but that is also after listening to a lot of interviews from the director, where she's like, or they're like, dude, I realized who I was when I was writing this screenplay, and like I wanted it to be ambiguous, and like I wanted it to resonate with a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and I wanted it to do it on a low budget, and I wanted it to be cool and like not like turn people off, but be done well. So it's like it's just this cool like cluster of what happened, what is it about? Like Casey did all this stuff, so and so did all this stuff. Some people pick up like, oh, this is this weird pedophile internet connection. Like it'd be really interesting to hear like what a 13-year-old or 14-year-old had to say about this movie, because they might just be like, oh yeah, like that's the internet.
yeah, they
it's
may
like-
have nothing
they're like,
to
yeah,
say about it.
whatever.
Like, I do this on.
You
I do this
know?
before breakfast.
Yeah, they're like, I've already put out like 3 videos today under 3 different pen
Yeah.
names.
I've done the World's Fair 4
what's
times.
the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. You've only done
Yeah.
the World's Fair once.
Yeah.
Because when you actually see the video, it was just like flashing screen. And you're like, it was
That's
just
it?
a ritual.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
There was no like weird video.
So I like to grab these every once in a while. IMDb has reviews on movies, and I found a really good one. So it says, if 2 hours of nothing happening turns you on, then you're in luck. Besides a really great performance by Anna Cobb, this movie is boring. I mean, almost nothing happens at all. The big plot twist at the end is silly and not very shocking in the slightest. So if you hate action and entertainment, then this is the movie for you.
Oh, I mean, it's funny that they probably meant that as a dig. And I'm just like, oh, good. Sign me up.
Yes.
You're like, oh, yeah, no action, no entertainment. Like, yeah.
I mean, how long are we going to be driving in a car?
3 hours. An abbreviated 3 hours.
We're gonna do it twice too.
Oh God.
I'm ready for Drive My Car like Road Trip. The sequel that
No,
comes out.
Drive My Car, Spring Breakers.
yeah. And then the threequels, Drive My Car Euro Trip.
Oh my gosh.
Then you got to get the crossover. It's like Medea drives my car.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
and then Harold and Kumar Drive My Car.
Yeah. Oh, God.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And they don't sound great, but I mean, like, talk about a cinematic universe.
I have come to like that movie so much more after because I edited our podcast for that and everything, and like listening to all the points again. I was like, man, I kind of messed this one up. It's a pretty good movie. It's
Well, it's the same as this
certainly
one.
still long, but it's certainly
If you
good.
engage with it one time, I can totally understand why you would come away with all of your opinions, because it's a slog. It really is.
Right.
I mean, there's no way around saying that. It's just that some people enjoy those slogs, like me, because sometimes on the first time through, I can pick up a lot more because I've been in the sloggiest swamps before. That one is so. I mean, when someone says exhilarating gamer mashup, like, I mean, I was exhilarated so many times throughout watching.
That's the wrong
World's
use of
Fair.
word, man.
I
No, he
know.
was exhilarated.
Yeah.
His
I know.
jaw had dropped.
It's just
I
crazy.
was
to
just
me.
like, I just couldn't get past, like, we're still hanging on this shot.
Yeah.
And this person is doing all of these things, and it feels just so real.
It's certainly engaging. I remember talking after that. I was
Yeah.
like, I was into the movie from start to finish. Like,
But
it's not paced out in a exhilarating way, I don't think,
Right.
but it's certainly engaging.
I would like to watch it again.
I would
Like
too.
knowing what I know now. And
Are we
like
talking about
watching it.
Drive My Car? Or,
No, we're talking about we're all going. So I'm never watching Drive My Car again in my life.
No, this is a cool hour 26. This is an
Yeah,
easy
this
one
isn't
to
even
get
an
through.
hour and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I'd really like to watch it again.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because-
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I hope that, like, if anyone listens to this and gives it a shot, like, that's the point of watching a movie like this to me, was just like, again, it's expanding your palette. Like, watch
Yeah.
something you wouldn't expect to. And this movie wasn't what I expected anyways, because it doesn't match up with the trailer. It doesn't match up with, like, article titles. And it was still something I was like,
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Like, Katya, like, I definitely want to see this again.
Yeah.
I said it too.
Okay.
Kevin.
Yeah, but we knew
You were
wanted to see
slogging
it.
through swamps with your little whatever it was, red sports car.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Oh, I don't remember, because I keep thinking about the
Saab?
book.
All right, do you want to close
The
this one
book
out?
is different.
Yeah.
All right, on a...
Oh, actually, you know-
hey,
Don't close that door on us
Okay.
yet. Yeah, you can go first.
I just wanted to let you know that Jane Schoenbrunn is doing an A24 film next.
Oh, what is it?
It's something about internet and
Oh,
stuff.
it's not titled yet or anything?
I don't remember the title.
Okay.
It may or may not be titled, but or they got picked up after this.
Oh, good.
I'm
Because
so
again,
excited.
like, that's like,
Yeah.
I love that a film like this gets made, and then
Yeah.
it gets you like boosted to make something, and especially by a studio that we love. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be awesome. And that's why, like, a big part of them being like, I'm not going to compromise. So now when I do A24, I can do it how I want to do it because they know I can do it. Like, I'm at the top of the power triangle here.
right.
They know I know my shit, right? Like,
Speaking of A24, we didn't mention it yet, but David Lowery was an executive producer on this,
Yeah.
who did one of my favorite movies, also produced by A24, A Ghost Story. He directed that.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Pete's Dragon.
Oh,
and that.
but I love that, like, within the industry, because David Lowery essentially self-funded A Ghost Story, which was like a passion project for him, a really low-budget movie that he kind of just did in secret and put out. And then so to be an executive producer and help someone else who's like, hey, like, this is a movie I want to make and not compromise on it. I want it to be a story that I care about. Like, I love that David Lowery is a producer on this because it felt like that's been the MO for some movies he's done.
It's probably why, because of Casey Affleck, is why the character is named Casey.
Yeah, there's that. Dude, the worlds are connected.
Tie-in, yeah. Crossover event.
Stop.
She was really a ghost the whole time.
Dude, I hate this movie now.
You can cut that. But my last question for this is this movie important? I feel like at this point it's kind of moot. I feel like I've talked about it enough to say that, but I want to know what y'all think about that.
So I don't know. And also, side note, Jane Schoenbrun's movie with A24 is called I Saw the TV Glow, is what's coming out.
So it's Poltergeist.
So it's like they're doing they're following up on this idea.
I love it.
So I think in that sense, like if this is, I think this is, it's hard to say. I think it's like important in the sense that people should watch it. I think it's important in the sense that it was released at like Sundance, right? Or like,
Well, I mean, like, is this
And
an
then it was-
important, like, culturally for people to see? Is this an important film in? I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that The Green Knight is an
Yeah.
important movie. I wouldn't say that The Lighthouse is an important movie.
I think this is important. I think this is like you want people to think about how they interact with the internet. You want to think people to think about loneliness. You want people to think about this. Like if they get the point of it and they can make it past the slow burning, like what they thought was going to be horror and turned into just like this weird, uncomfortable feeling. I think that's what's important about it, but I don't see how it can appeal to a lot of people that aren't already interested in this stuff.
I would like piggyback off that. I think deciding if a movie is important or not depends entirely on the person viewing it.
Yeah.
Like we did reviews on some classics that critics would be like Jaws is an important movie, or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is an important movie, or Casablanca is an important movie. Like these movies mean something to cinema. They mean something to the people who have like come before you. We reviewed them and I was like, these are okay. Like none of them are very important to me. Is this movie really important to me either? Like I think it has a great message. I think it does a good job of conveying what it wants to talk about. But I mean, I'm not going to ask my mom to watch this and be like, this is so important. Like you need to see this.
That's funny because I really do think this is an important movie. I think this is an important film because, like I was saying before, of how underrepresented the ideas of how people interact with internet, how underrepresented those are. It's very, very interesting to see how that's not how I interact with the internet, but I understand that is the way that a lot of people do. So I think to get inside of someone's head and why they think the things that they do and how close, like sometimes like how tight the line is they walk between reality and delusion and how destructive that can be is without being sensationalized. I think that's the thing is like, this is not sensationalized, but she really does walk that line.
I think it's also really hard to, I think what's interesting and important about this is it's really hard to say like what's reality and like why is real IRL like reality? Like why is that? Like for a lot of people the internet
excuse
is
me, it's
reality.
called the Earl.
By who?
Everyone over 30.
It's a terrible one.
I'm 29.
Kiefer and I reviewed the Ready Player One books, and then we reviewed the movie. And when instead of saying IRL, they say, "Oh, the Earl."
Okay, well that's
So
like
it was a terrible reference to a
world-building
previous
thing.
podcast.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So I just think this is like I think it's just so important for so many people to like think about how they interact because you say you don't interact with that and like I would say I don't interact like this, but I watch like I go and scroll on Instagram videos and then sometimes I buy like my shampoo and conditioner because I saw it on an Instagram reel, or I buy this or that, or I like, oh, I want to go there and I go somewhere because I saw it.
Yeah.
It's like that becomes real.
Yeah, exactly. I clicked Nintendo Switch Sports one time. That is every ad before every YouTube video I watch now. So I finally just bought it and hopefully they stop.
They won't.
I'm not gonna stop. So it's like this is people's reality. Some people live their whole life like this, and
that's the thing. It's like what I find so interesting about that. There is a whole subsection of I wouldn't even call it a subsection. I think there are different parts of everybody's life where they go through things of how they interact with the sphere of technology this way. So the fact that this just doesn't come up in stories is wild to me. I think this is such a common experience that we just don't see. And that's why I think it's important, is because why aren't we talking about this? Everybody is going through this. Everybody understands at some point, at some level, what is happening with this teenage girl, I think. Unless you're maybe, I don't even think that, I think that anybody can understand that's had a television. Technology can completely warp your entire perception of reality.
Oh, I think the reason you don't get more of these movies, I think there are some of them, but it's because you get the whole movie that takes place through like Skype,
Yeah.
and it's a bad story and it's bad acting, and I think this is just this is just a really good version of that. I think the story of like internet and technology and how we interact with it, I don't think that that's like exactly a new or novel thing. I just think this is probably one of the best depictions of it
Yeah,
I've seen.
I think it's a
Yeah.
really
So I
just
guess
think
I
there's
could
a lot
agree
of-
it's like important in that way, but I
just
guess
think
when I
there
think
are
of-
other ways people interact with the internet still that we don't explore, that are just as wild. You know, they're really out there. They're not even sensational. They're just so crazy because they are so different than how you engage in. You have your online
Yeah.
persona, you have your real person, and then you have your in real life persona, and those all can be three different things. That's what I think is so crazy.
Yeah, I want to see like a rom-com. So I'm thinking of like my best friend from high school went to college and then met her now wife like through a chat room, and then they like dated through the internet, and they didn't really meet each other until like 3 or 4 years into their relationship. Now they're married and living together. So I'd love to see like a rom-com, like just
That's
through
just LTR,
yeah,
entire, or not
just like the
LTR,
whole thing.
LDR.
Because that's so much more realistic than we meet in Paris and eat cheese and it was magical.
Oh, and
Like,
someone tripped and I
Yeah.
caught them.
that's
or you
so
meet at a grocery
unrealistic.
store and then someone ends up
Yeah,
eating
then you get eaten alive, or you go to college together and again you get eaten alive.
We have we have an episode coming out on Fresh, that's essentially what happens. So, meet at
A movie
grocery
that I
store.
don't think is really as important.
All right, and with that, I think we're going to get ready to close this one out. This ended up being a better discussion than I thought it was going to be. I mean, it was a good discussion. It ended up being longer than I thought it was be.
We went into more places than I was expecting. I was really just, all of my ideas were on just the internet itself. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't even get into any psychological archetypes.
I
or
think we
anything
could
like
do a
that.
whole episode on our experiences of the internet.
We
Yeah.
talked about
An
Hanlon's
archetype.
razor, for God's sake. Like,
Yeah.
this became a really big conversation.
He like quoted from memory. If I remember correctly, quote Hanlon's razor.
If I remember from memory, a term of which I am no longer familiar with means this thing. I feel like that was the common theme. So this is a totally real thing.
Yeah.
This is its definition.
Or is it?
So on a scale of 1 to 10 lemur eyes,
Oh.
what do you give this?
Shout out to Poe, the dead lemur.
Poor Poe.
Poor
I
guy.
feel like Jaden would have had the same thing. Like that was the worst part of the whole.
Oh,
movie.
you're so right.
It wasn't even a real animal, and I was still like, "What is wrong with you?"
You know, I had like 3 or 4 of those growing up. I had so many, and I didn't even play with them. I just liked them hanging around. Yeah, I had a bunch of those little lemurs growing up.
I still have my blankie, and I would never like willfully destroy my blankie.
Dang.
Maybe if you
If
did
you
the
joined the
World's
World's Fair?
Fair challenge, maybe you would get sucked in and to destroy
I think
Pengy even.
it's all mental.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. It affects you mentally.
Okay, I'm gonna give it. I'll start. I'm gonna give it 9
Wow.
lemur eyes.
I find your score to be like the most surprising because you came out of the movie saying you were bored. So that's a big sway, I think.
I was very bored. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the director. I started liking them a lot, and I was very uncomfortable for like a couple hours after watching the movie and the next day. So I think that did a lot.
Yeah, this is like a linger with you movie for sure.
Yeah, even thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, I feel a little anxious.
Yeah.
Just imagining what could happen to me or
If
my
you-
kids
Yeah.
or whoever.
No, I agree. I definitely got caught up in it, and I felt like I was still experiencing like whatever level of, like you said, like guilt or angst following the movie.
Angst.
And I think that's like a really pretty amazing thing to pull off in a movie where you can, it's not a big spectacle. It's not supposed to grab you emotionally. It's not going to stun you visually, but to like have the effects of a movie wear on, the next day or two after, I think it's like so impressive. So yeah, I'm going to be right with you. I think this movie's like an 8. I thought this was really good.
Yeah, I struggle with where to put this because there's just a lot of stuff I found so much fun just from my perspective of like my journey as a filmmaker and then my eventual end as a filmmaker was basically this whole.
It's never over. You can make it.
I mean, I'm sure I could pick it back up, but to this point, I've never made movies outside of basically what they made. So that just being able to see a feature-length film made with the budget that I was always working with, it's just so fantastic. And I think this is an important film. It's just not, it's not a lighthouse, you know. It's not, it's, the lighthouse isn't important, but there's so much more that I love about that movie in the way it is structured. But this is still really, really good.
Yeah.
So of Lemur Eyes, it's gonna be like a 9.3.
Dang, that sucks. I'm the lowest with an 8. This is a pretty impressive movie then. Like if I'm the lowest score with 8.
You're always the lowest score with an 8.
But yeah, no, I loved this conversation and the fact that it expanded so much more than I thought. I thought I took a lot of notes, and you guys had all done your own research, and like Katya especially, like doing more background on the director, I thought like gave a lot more context to the film. But yeah, I love when we get to have a good conversation. That always like bumps the score up of a movie for me. If I'm able to sit down and like be engaged in a conversation about it, then this movie meant something to me, and I think it meant something to all of us because like we ended up talking almost 2 hours about it.
Yeah,
so.
and that's the whole point of the cinema.
Yeah,
that's why I love. I mean, we had like a small discussion after the theater, and then like it's always so sad to me that that's all you ever get with friends. Like, oh, outside the theater it's cold and it's snowing. Yep.
I just
and
can't
it's like 10.
think that quickly. It's like, oh, who knows? What is this gonna do to me tomorrow?
Yeah, and sometimes
know.
these things just after seeing so many different things, though, I don't think that my overall opinion really changed of it. I think some of the smaller details really cemented, but it's easier to put things in boxes when you've seen so many different forms that film can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I love this. Even still, I could still talk about this for another 2 hours because of all of the subjects it brings up, and that's what's so important about it.
And I think it's great. I think that's one thing we hope to be as like a podcast is like, hey, maybe you go see a movie with friends and you guys don't get the chance to talk about it afterwards, or maybe you had to go see a movie by yourself and you want to talk about it. I'd love if this podcast became like a bounce board for you, or like just a way to like, and again, this is a way people use the internet. It's the way you interact sometimes. Like, hey, maybe you went and saw we're all going to the World's Fair and you didn't get to see it with anyone. And you get to throw on this podcast and hear our thoughts on it and feel like you got to be a part of something. I think that's part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast in the first place. So, no, but yeah, I just, that's one cool thing that's been able to come about for me from doing this is just being able to have a conversation about it, which again is something I feel like a lot of people miss out on because like you said, you just finish the movie and then you go home. But I love having these conversations. This was a great one to talk about. But yeah, with that, we're going to wrap this one up. I'm Connor and I'm here as always with Calvin.
And thanks for having me.
And thanks again, Katya, for joining us.
Thank you, and shout out to Tracy. You know who you are. Let me know if you heard this.
What's the code
Is there a
word?
code word at the end she needs to tell you to?
Oh, it's poop emoji.
Great. All right. With that, we're going to wrap this one up. You can find our podcast on any platform like Apple Podcast or Spotify. We also upload all these to YouTube. Go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us what we're doing well. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And if you have any suggestions for films we should watch in the future, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And with that, thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.